Hello everyone. In this video, I'll be talking about the concept of polarization, dipole moment, bond parameters like bond length, bond angle and bond energy, as well as intermolecular forces. First, coming on to the types of covalent bond. There are two main types of covalent bond, mainly nonpolar and polar covalent bonds. So first let us come to what is called as nonpolar covalent bond. So let us take the example of H2 molecule. Here, the covalent bond between the two hydrogen atoms is called as nonpolar covalent bond since the two electrons are equally distributed among the two atoms. Or we can say that the electron cloud is uniformly distributed among the two atoms. Okay, so such a bond where the electrons are equally distributed among the two atoms is called as nonpolar covalent bond. So this type of bond exists between two similar atoms. Here it is both are hydrogens, here both are chlorine atoms. So next type of covalent bond is polar covalent bond. So this type of covalent bond occurs when two different atoms, or I can say when one atom is more electronegative, then such type of bond comes into existence. So here let us take the example of HCl. Among hydrogen and chlorine, chlorine atom is more electronegative. So here what happens is the electron density is displaced more towards the chlorine atom, or I can say the electron cloud is more concentrated on the electronegative atom, that is chlorine. So such type of bond that occurs between hydrogen and chlorine, that is when one atom is more electronegative, then such a bond is called as polar covalent bond. Since the electron pair is more displaced towards chlorine, chlorine atom gets a partial negative charge which is represented as delta minus. This hydrogen, since the electron is more towards chlorine, the hydrogen gets a partial positive charge which is represented as delta plus. So such type of bond that is occurring due to the displacement of electrons towards one atom, that bond is referred to as polar covalent bond. So example for such compound which consists of polar covalent bond is HCl. Okay, so next coming on to the concept of dipole moment, which is represented as mu. So dipole moment is used to measure the polarity of a bond. Okay, so it is measured by the multiplication, or I can say it is a product of the charge and distance between the two ions, and it is represented or it is measured in terms of dBi units, which is represented as capital letter D. So it is also a vector quantity and it is represented by an arrow which is pointed towards the electronegative atom. More is the dipole moment, more will be the polarity of the bond. So let us come to the examples of dipole moments. So first coming on to diatomic molecules. Let us take the example of HF. So as you all know, fluorine is more electronegative when compared to hydrogen. So what happens here is, this is a representation of the dipole moment. As we all know, the dipole moment is a vector quantity which is represented by an arrow pointing towards the most electronegative atom. So here, fluorine is more electronegative. So we write an arrow pointing towards fluorine. So this is a representation of the dipole moment which is in this direction. That is towards the direction of electronegative atom. And the dipole moment of this molecule is 1.90 dpi. One more example is HCl molecule. Again we know that chlorine is more electronegative. So the dipole moment is represented by an arrow pointing towards chlorine, which is the electronegative atom. And the value of dipole moment is 1.08 dpi for HCl molecule. Here what we have to concentrate is the overall dipole moment of the molecule is equal to the dipole moment of the bond. That is, the dipole moment of this HF bond is equal to the dipole moment of this whole molecule. Same way, dipole moment of this HCl bond is equal to the dipole moment of the entire molecule. So this is the case in diatomic molecules. So next, coming on to polyatomic molecules. So how the dipole moment will vary in case of polyatomic molecules. So first case is unsymmetrical or bent molecules. Let us take the example of water. Here if you can see, oxygen is bonded with two hydrogens. Hydrogen and oxygen, when you compare, oxygen is electronegative in nature. So both the dipole moments of these two bonds are pointed towards oxygen in this direction. So when both the dipole moments are in this direction, the resultant dipole moment will be in this direction, that is in the direction of the dipole moment of the two bonds. Next, if you consider the example of CH3F. So when you compare the CH bonds, the dipole moment will be pointed towards carbon atom. When you compare carbon and fluorine, fluorine is electronegative. So what happens here is the dipole moment is pointed towards fluorine atom. Next, if you consider the example of ammonia, which is pyramidal in shape. If you compare these three bonds, NH bonds, nitrogen is more electronegative. So all the dipole moments will be towards this direction, that is towards the direction of nitrogen. Okay, so the resultant dipole moment will be upwards. So here what we see is the dipole moment of individual bond is not equal to the dipole moment of the entire molecule. Whereas in diatomic molecule, the dipole moment of the individual bond was equal to the dipole moment of the entire molecule. Next, coming on to symmetrical or linear molecules. So in both these cases, if the molecule is symmetrical in nature or if the molecule is linear, then the dipole moment will be equal to 0. So let us consider this example of carbon dioxide. So here carbon has two oxygens bonded by means of double bonds and it has a linear shape. So here you can see, if you consider this bond, carbon and oxygen, oxygen is electronegative. So dipole moment will be towards the direction of oxygen. Same way, if you consider this bond, dipole moment will be in the direction of oxygen. So here you can see the dipole moments are opposite in direction and they are equal because this is also CO with the double bond and this is also CO with the double bond. So both are equal and opposite, so because of which they cancel each other. So overall dipole moment of this molecule will be equal to 0. Next, coming on to BF3, boron trifluoride. So as you all know, this is an example for a symmetrical molecule. So if you consider this, let us consider these two bonds, BF, okay. So here you can see the dipole moment is pointed towards fluorine atom. Here also dipole moment is pointed towards fluorine atom. The resultant dipole moments of these two bonds will be downwards, okay. That is, the resultant will be opposite in direction to the dipole moment of this bond. So since the dipole moment of this bond is in this direction, the resultant will be in opposite direction. The two dipole moments will be equal and opposite to each other and hence they cancel each other. So the total dipole moment of the molecule will be 0. Next, coming on to CCl4. Again it is an tetrahedron and it is an example for a symmetrical molecule. So again the resultant dipole moment due to these three bonds, which is in opposite direction to the direction of dipole moment of this bond, will cancel each other and they are equal and opposite to each other and hence the overall dipole moment of the molecule is 0. So we have to remember, in linear molecules and symmetrical molecules, the overall dipole moment of the molecules will be equal to 0. Next, coming on to the concept of bond parameters. Under bond parameters, we'll be seeing three different parameters, that is bond length, bond angle and bond energy. First, coming on to bond length. So as you all know, bond length is nothing but the average distance between the two nuclei. So you also know that the bond length of single bond will be more than that of double bond, and it will be more than that of triple bond. So let us take this simple example. Here we have the example of C2H6, which has only a single bond between the two carbons. So here the bond length is 153.5 picometer. C2H4, which has a double bond between two carbon atoms, here the bond length is 133.9, which is lesser than C to C single bond. Again we have one more example, C2H2, which has a triple bond between the two carbon atoms, and the bond length is 120.3 picometer, which is again less than C to C double bond. So here the bond length decreases with the increase in number of bonds between the carbon atoms. Next, coming on to bond angle. So the angle formed between two imaginary lines drawn from the nucleus of the central atom to the nuclei of the bonded atoms. So now suppose if you take this is a central atom. If you join the nucleus of this central atom with that of the nucleus of the bonded atoms, let us take these two bonded atoms and join the nuclei of these. So whatever the bond angle that is formed between this is nothing but the bond angle. Okay. So it depends on the presence of lone pair and bond pairs around the central atom. So let us take this simple example. Here methane, we know that in all these three cases it is sp3 hybridization. In methane, all the four are bond pairs. So the bond angle is 109.5. Here there is one lone pair and three bond pairs. Here there will be one more type of repulsion, that is repulsion between lone pair and bond pair. So because of this, all the bond pairs will try to come closer to each other, because of which the bond angle will decrease from 109.5 to 107 degree. Here as you can see, there are two lone pairs around the central atom oxygen. So what happens here is there will be lone pair repulsion as well as lone pair bond pair repulsions. So because of this, the two bond pairs will still come closer to each other, and hence the bond angle will decrease from 107 degree to again 105 degree. So the bond angle depends on the number of bond pairs as well as lone pairs that are present on the central central atom, sorry. Okay, next coming on to bond energy. So it is very simple. Energy required for breaking 1 mole of bonds in the gaseous state. So as you all know, triple bonds are stronger than double bonds, which are again stronger than the single bond. So here you can see, just we can make a comparison. So bond, single, double and triple. So bond length of a single bond is highest, then it will be the double bond, and least will be the triple bond. Whereas bond energy, that is energy required to break these bonds, it is very easy to remember. Breaking 3 bonds is difficult, so more energy is required. Breaking 2 bonds will be quite easier, so comparatively lesser energy. Whereas breaking 1 bond will be still easier, so the energy required is least. So this was about the bond parameters. Next, coming on to the concept of polarization. So polarization is nothing but distortion brought about in the electron distribution when polar molecules are brought near non-polar molecules. So let this diagram, this picture will make you understand this concept more clearly. So here what happens, this is a polar molecule. Here what happens is there is a complete distribution of charge on the ends. So here you can see plus charge is towards completely this side. Here the negative charge is on the other side. So this, whatever this molecule is said to be polarized. That is, the positive and negative charge is completely separated from each other. So this is called as polarization. Okay. So, okay. Next, coming on to Fajans rule. So, Fajans rule mainly explains the conditions that are required for polarization and how the polarizing power will change according to the size and charge of the cations and anions. So, here we are speaking about how the anion will be polarized by the cation. Okay, so let me make it more clear by this picture. So here what happens here is, okay, so suppose this is the anion, okay, so here what happens is the outer cloud of the anion will be polarized by the cation. Okay, so this is X, that is cation, this is Y, that is anion. Okay, so here what we are speaking is the outer cloud of the anion. So obviously we know that in most of the cases the anion will have a larger size when compared to the cation. So the outer electron cloud of the anion will be polarized, that is it will be slightly towards this cation since the cation is making this anion to get polarized. Okay, so although this is an ionic bond in the sense the interaction between a positive and negative ion, we usually call it as ionic interaction or ionic bond. But although this is an ionic bond, since there is polarization, we call it as a covalent character in the ionic bond. So if there is polarization of the anion, we tell that although it is an ionic bond, there is some covalent character. So this covalent character arises because of polarization of the anion. Okay, so which are the factors that affect this polarization? First factor is size of the ion. So if the cation is very small and if the anion is very large, then the polarization is very effective. Okay, because if the anion is large, the electron cloud will be easily available for polarization. And if the cation is very small, then what happens here is the positive charge will have more hold towards pulling this or attracting this electron cloud of the anion. Okay, yeah. So let us compare this. All these cases it is chloride anion. I have kept it as constant, but here the cations have been changed. Sodium, next if you see magnesium and aluminium. Magnesium has a larger charge and aluminium has still more charge when compared to sodium. If you compare the size, if you compare sodium and magnesium, this is smaller in size, aluminium is still smaller. Okay, so as the size of the cation is small, polarization of the anion will be maximum. Here, the size of the cation is larger than that of aluminium, so polarization is not so effective. Sodium size is much larger when compared to that of aluminium and magnesium, so polarization is not very high when compared to this. Now if you compare the charge, this is +1, +2 and +3. Here the charge is much more and hence the polarization is maximum. So the second factor is nothing but the charge on the cation as well as the charge on the anion should be maximum. Then the polarization will be also maximum. Okay, so here as the charge increases, the polarization also increases. As the size decreases, the polarization also increases. Okay, yeah. So here if you compare fluoride, chloride and bromide, as the size of the anion increases, okay, fluoride is small in size, chloride larger and bromide is largest among these three. So what happens? Larger is the anion, easier it is to get polarized by the cation. So here the cations are kept constant. Fluoride is small in size, so polarization is less. Here chloride is larger, so polarization is effective, whereas bromide, which is the largest in size among the three, here the polarization is maximum. So one thing you have to remember is for effective polarization, cation should be small, anion should be very large. Okay. Second point is the charge on cation as well as anion should be more to bring about maximum polarization. Okay. So second point, as I've already told, greater the charge of cation or anion, greater is the covalent character. Okay. So here you have already discussed this. So sodium, here it is +1, +2, +3. So as the charge on the cation as well as anion increases, the polarization also increases and hence the covalent character also increases. So the third condition is electronic configuration. Suppose if you compare two compounds, let us take the example of mercury chloride and calcium chloride, HeCl2 and CaCl2. The configuration, outermost configuration of Hg is 5d10 6s0. Okay, here although the d orbitals is completely filled, we call it as pseudo octet because it is not in the form of Ns2np6 configuration. So in case of calcium, the outermost electronic configuration is in the form of Ns2np6. So here what you have to remember is whenever there is d orbital or whenever there is pseudo octet, the polarization by that cation will be maximum. Whereas whenever the cation has inert gas configuration, then the polarization will be lesser. Okay, so why the polarization will be maximum when it has pseudo octet or whenever it has d electrons? So what you have to remember is the d electrons are very poor in shielding. So if shielding effect is less, the nucleus will have more power to pull the outer electrons of the anion. So if the outer electrons of the anion, that is a neighboring anion, is pulled, then what happens is polarization is more. If polarization is more, the covalent character is also more. So I repeat, since here if we are speaking about mercury, it has d electrons in its outermost configuration. So d electrons are they have very poor shielding effect. If shielding effect is less, the cation will have more power to polarize the anion and hence the covalent character will be more because of more polarization. Whereas if the cation has this inert gas configuration, then what happens here is the polarization will be less and hence covalent character also will be lesser. Next is intra and intermolecular forces. So weak interatomic or intermolecular force of attraction which holds the different constituents together is called as van der Waals interaction. So here we have this. So the intermolecular forces of attraction which are weak in nature are referred to as van der Waals interactions. So let us come to the different types of interactions. So first coming on to dipole-dipole interaction. So now let us consider this example, HCl. As you already know, chlorine is more electronegative. So what happens here is the shared pair of electrons are more towards this chlorine. So if shared pair of electrons are more towards one atom, this atom gets a partial negative charge and this atom gets a partial positive charge. So we call this molecule as a dipole now. Why it is called a dipole? Because the charges are somewhat separated. Here it is more negative, here it is more positive. So when two dipoles, that is when two HCl molecules which are called as dipoles are coming together or when they are placed together, here there is one attraction that is between the hydrogen of one molecule and chlorine of another molecule. So this force of attraction is called as dipole-dipole interaction. So why we call it as dipole-dipole interaction? Because this is a dipole which is formed by the separation of charges. Again, this is one more dipole which is formed by the separation of charges. The interaction between these two dipoles are called as dipole-dipole interaction. So it is fairly strong type of interaction because it is in between two permanent dipoles. Okay, so they can exist either in solid or liquid state. Next is dipole-induced dipole interaction. Yeah, let me take this example. So here, what happens here is first this was not a dipole. Now, because of this molecule, which was like this before is getting polarized or it is becoming a dipole. Such type of dipole which was first not a dipole and then it is getting converted into a dipole is called as induced dipole. Okay, so when interaction of this induced dipole takes place with a permanent dipole, then such type of interaction is referred to as dipole-induced dipole interaction. First we spoke about dipole-dipole interaction, the interaction between two permanent dipoles. Here it is not a permanent dipole. A non-polar, which is not a dipole molecule, is converted into a dipole, or what we say is it is induced into becoming a dipole, and this induced dipole is having an attractive interaction with a permanent dipole. Then such type of interaction is called as dipole induced dipole interaction. Next is induced dipole interaction. So we'll take this example. So suppose we consider helium atom. Okay. So because of the uneven distribution of charges, so what happens here is, suppose in this atom, the positive and negative charge is separated. Okay. So what happens here is, this atom will induce the other atom to become a dipole. Okay. This is first of all not a permanent dipole. This is becoming a dipole because of uneven distribution of charges. Okay. So here what happens is, since the charges are separated, okay, so this atom can induce the neighboring atom to become a dipole. So this is first of all a induced dipole. This is one more induced dipole which is induced because of this atom. Okay. So this is an induced dipole. This is also an induced dipole. So the interaction between these two is referred to as induced dipole interaction. So such type of force is called as London force. So there are three types of interactions. Dipole-dipole interaction, which is between permanent dipole molecules. Second one is dipole-induced dipole interaction. Third one is both are induced dipoles. So induced dipole interaction. Next is, we are speaking about particular examples, that is intermolecular forces in iodine. So first let us consider the halogens. You know that halogens are fluorine, chlorine, bromine and iodine. Okay. So fluorine and chlorine, these are gases at room temperature. Bromine, as you all know, it exists as a liquid, and iodine exists as a solid at room temperature. So why all these things takes place? Okay. Although all of these are halogens, why some of them exist as gas, why some of them exist as liquids, and why some of them exist as solid? Okay. So main cause for this is because of the intermolecular forces of attraction. So one thing what you have to remember is, these intermolecular forces of attraction will be more, or it will increase with the increase in size. Okay. So as you all know, fluorine has the smallest size when compared to all the other halogens. So if the size is small, the intermolecular force of attraction is also less. Okay. If the interaction or the attraction is less, then what happens is, the atoms will be far from each other. If the atoms are far, then obviously it should be in the gaseous state, right? Next is chlorine. Again, chlorine also, it is, the size is larger when compared to fluorine, but it is not very large. So again, the intermolecular forces between the atoms is lesser. So what happens here is, again the distance between the atoms is more, and hence it will also exist in the gaseous state. Okay. So next, coming on to bromine. Bromine has a larger size when compared to chlorine and fluorine. So what happens here is, as the size increases, the intermolecular forces also increases. So here, since the size is larger, intermolecular force of attraction is also more. So what happens here is, the molecules are slightly closer to each other. If they are close to each other, then obviously it should exist as a liquid. Next, if you compare iodine to all these three, iodine has the largest size. So intermolecular force of attraction between the iodine atoms, that is, we are speaking about van der Waals forces, it will be maximum. If the force of attraction is maximum, then the atoms will be more closer to each other, and if they are more close to each other, then what happens is, the iodine exists in the solid state because all the atoms are much closer to each other. So here Fluorine exists as a gas. Chlorine again exists as a gas at room temperature. Bromine exists as a liquid and iodine exists as a solid. The explanation I've already given. Yeah. So next, coming on to the example of intermolecular forces in dry ice. So dry ice is nothing but solid carbon dioxide. Okay. So we know that carbon dioxide molecule, if you take individual carbon dioxide molecule, it has two oxygens on either side of carbon. The dipole moment is equal and opposite of these two bonds, okay, which are in opposite directions, and hence the overall dipole moment is zero. So here what happens, the interactions between the different molecules is only here. You can see that whatever I've shown with arrows, those are the interactions between the molecules. So the intermolecular forces of attraction between these molecules are only van der Waals forces, because the overall dipole moment of each molecule is zero. Coming on to the last example, that is intermolecular forces in SO2. So you know the structure of sulfur dioxide. It has a bent structure. So if you compare sulfur and oxygen, oxygen is more electronegative. So the dipole moment will be towards oxygen. So the overall SO2 molecule has a net dipole moment. So since it has a net dipole moment, the interactions between the different molecules, see, each molecule will have a dipole moment. So we can call it, each molecule we can call it as a dipole because there is charge separation. So the interaction between the different molecules will be called as dipole-dipole interactions in this case. Okay, so again we took three examples. We spoke about halogens. Why halogens? Among halogens, some exist as gas, some as liquids, and some as solids in room temperature, which is explained by means of intermolecular interactions. Then we took the example of dry ice. Here, since the net dipole moment is zero, the only interactions that can take place between the molecules is van der Waals force. So here in SO2, since the molecule has net dipole, the interactions between the molecules can be called as dipole-dipole interactions. So this video describes the different intermolecular interactions as well as bond parameters, and also I've also spoken about the polarization concept and what are the different conditions for polarization of the anion by the cation, and we also discussed about Fajans rule and all the three conditions and how we can determine based on the charge as well as size of the cation and anion whether the given ionic compound will have covalent character. I thank you all for watching the video.